So let's go ahead and get started with our project. The first thing that you need this folder. So if you don't have it, go to the link below and download it. This folder is going to consist the files that we need to get started for both the backend and the front end. So we are going to be constantly visiting this folder, get what we need to use at that particular moment. So for now, let's just close it and set it aside. But you need to download it first before we start anything. So in this project, we're going to start everything from scratch. So the first thing that we're going to do is to go ahead and open a new window in our code editor. In this instance, I'm going to use VS Code. So if you're using Android Studio, you can go ahead and do the same. So I'm going to create a new window. After creating a new window, I'm going to go ahead and Command-Shift-P so that I can create a new project. So I'm going to create a new Flutter project, and it's going to be an application. So you need to pick a directory where you're going to store your project. For instance, mine, I'm going to store it in project. So I'm going to select the folder, and I'm going to give this project a name. So I'm going to call it Foodly, like that. And then I'm just going to hit enter. So after hitting enter, our project will be created. So we need to wait a little bit. Next, we are going to run this project. So I'm going to zoom everything a little bit, but this part is not that important to zoom. Probably we need to zoom when we start working. So let's just clear this first. And next, we need to run this project. So you might choose a different way to run your project, but for mine, I'm going to go ahead and just run here. So you will need an emulator or a simulator to run the project, depending on the operating system that you're on. If you're on iOS, then you are going to be using the simulator. Then if you're on Windows, probably you're going to be using the emulator. And if you're on root device, either way, it's going to work. So we need to wait for our project to run, and then we can proceed with our next step. So each and every time that we are doing this, we are going to be marking whatever we have done on our task list. So we have a task list. So we've created a clean project here. So that means we are done with that part. So we can take it off our task list. The next thing is to install dependencies, but we need to run our application first just to see what we have. So let's go back. So our application is running. We need to bring our simulator. So this is our application. We need to go ahead and install dependencies, and then we can start working on our UI. So you have to open the folder that I said you need in the first place. So you go ahead and open the folder. In this folder, we do have a file with the name pubspec.yaml. So I need you to just drag this pubspec.yaml and drop it in your code editor. So what you need to do here, you need to come down here and copy everything starting from Cupertino icons, okay, down to the bottom. Okay, so once you copy, you need to go ahead and open your directory, okay, and you need to go ahead and open your applications pubspec.yaml. Okay, after you open your pubspec.yaml, the next thing that you need to do is to go ahead and paste what we've copied. But the first thing that we need to do in here, we need to clean our code a little bit. We need to get rid of the stuff that we don't need. All of this, we're not going to be requiring these comments. So we're going to paste the code that we copy, starting from here up until the bottom. Okay, so we just remove the code and then we paste the new code. So make sure that your first line is aligned. Everything is aligned here. Okay, so if you have provider, you need to get rid of provider. We don't need it. And this is everything that we're going to be using while we are creating our application. So now we have these dependencies. Before we even save, what we need to do, we need to have our assets. Right now, we don't have our assets in this project, but we have our assets inside of the folder that you've downloaded. So you go ahead and open the folder. After you open the folder, you go to assets, you just drag and drop them to your root directory, and you just copy folder. Okay, so this is the folder that you get. It has all the images that we're going to use, almost everything that we're going to use. Everything, not almost. So it has everything. After that, you can go ahead and save your PubSpec YAML. Okay, so the dependencies are going to install, and then we can move on to the next step. So here we don't have an error. Okay, so that means everything that we've added have been successfully installed. So what we're going to be doing, if it is required, we're going to be visiting pub.dev to check the settings of the dependencies that we're going to be using, and then we can make some configurations, then we can move on. But this is all that we need to do in order for us to begin. So let's go ahead and close this one. We don't need it, and we can close this one as well. So we go back to our list. In our list, we've installed dependencies, so we are taking that off the board, and we are done with importing our assets. So we need to take care of our constants, because we haven't put our constants inside of our project as yet. So what we need to do, we go back to our folder. Let's just move this a little bit. To our folder, we have constants. So this constants folder is going to be inside of our lib folder. Okay, so we need to drag and drop it inside of our constants folder. Okay, so that's all that we need to do for now. Proceed to the next thing. So what we need to do, we need to hook our application to screen utils so that we can have a responsive application to different sizes and different scenarios. And we are going to use GetX as our state management. So we want to hook GetX as well, and then we can proceed to work on our bottom navigation bar. So if you see here, we do have a bottom navigation bar. We're going to take care of that, and then we can get into our home page and styling it a little bit. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and visit our project. Okay, so this is our project. We've already installed screen utils. So the next thing that we need to do is to hook screen utils here. So we don't want to waste much more time. So what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and visit. So here you need to go to not PubSpec here. You need to visit pub.dev. My bad. If you visit pub.dev, you need to look for Flutter screen utils. Okay, so we need to go ahead and copy this stateless widget from here. Okay, I'm not going to create it from scratch, so we're just going to copy it from here, and then we're going to go back to our project. So in our project, we need to replace this stateless widget that we have with the one that we copied from screen utils. We can get rid of the comments. Okay, so let's go ahead and import screen utils, and we need to change this size from 360 to 375, and we need to change this from 600. This is our height, our design height. We need to change it to 825. Okay, like that. So everything else remains the same, and here I'm going to replace this with context. And since we're using GetX, we need to use getMaterialApp instead of MaterialApp. Okay, so we need to import GetX. We need to import Get. Take care of our title. Our title is supposed to be Foodly. We also need to take care of our theme. So in our theme, we have theme data. So in our theme data, we are going to get rid of these two. Okay, after getting rid of them, we need to have scaffold background color. So for scaffold background color, we're going to utilize a color inside of our constants. So if we go ahead and take a look inside of the constants folder that we've imported, we do have these colors. These are the colors that we are going to to be using. Okay, so our background color is supposed to be K-off-white. Okay, so let's go back to our main.dart. In our main.dart, we need to import K-off-white. Okay, so that's going to be our scaffold background color, and we need to have icon theme. So for icon theme, we're going to use icon theme data, and we need to give it a color. So for this color, we're going to use K-dark. That's a black color inside of our constants. So here we need to give it a color first, and the color is supposed to be K-dark, and we need to add const over here. Okay, so we are done with that part. Our primary swatch is going to be a gray color. So here we're going to just access our colors, and we're going to make it gray like that. Okay, so we are done with screen utils, hooking GetX, and then what we need to do here, we need to just hook this my home page as a child here. Okay, so we might get rid of it in a little bit. So if we visit our application, this is what our application looks like now. So we're going to continue making changes, then we can start working on our UI. So visiting our code, let's put it side by side with the simulator so that we can have a visual of what we are doing exactly. So here, instead of passing a child, we are going to get rid of this child, and we are going to have home. Okay, this home, instead of a child, we want to use a default home. So that is a widget that we need to create right on top. Okay, so we don't have this widget as yet, so we are going to create it right on top of everything. Okay, so here we're going to have widgets, and we're going to give it a name, default home. Okay, so our default home is going to be here. We can give it anything for now. So we're going to change it a little bit when we work on our entry point, but for now, that's going to be our page. So if we save, nothing changes. Okay, nothing changes, but we are done with the basic setup. So the next thing that we need to do, we need to start working on our entry point that we're going to use, and we are going to replace this page with our entry point. So let's go ahead and do that, but we're done with the basic setup of our application. Working on our bottom navigation bar, we have to take off the things that we've done of our bucket list. So we've hooked our application to screen utils, so we need to mark that as done, and we need to mark hooking GetX to our application is done as well, since we've done that. So our main focus is going to be our bottom navigation bar. At the same time, this is going to be our entry point of our application. So this is the part that we need to focus on. So this is our bottom navigation bar. So let's go ahead, open our project, and start working on our bottom navigation bar. So before we do anything, we need to get rid of this my home page. Okay, because we need to create a new entry point that we're going to hook to this default home widget. Okay, so we select everything down to the last line, which is 123, and then we can just delete the code, save, and inside of our lib folder, in our lib folder, we need to create a new folder, and we're going to call it views. Okay, so this is where we are going to put all our screens. So inside of this folder, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it Entrypoint. Okay, and it has to be a .dot file. So our entry point, we need to create a widget. So we're going to create a stateless widget, and we need to give it a name. So I'm going to give it a name, main screen. Okay, and here, let's go ahead and import material. After importing material, we need to change the return widget here. Instead of a scaffold, instead of a container, we're going to be using a scaffold. Okay, so inside of our scaffold, we're going to have a body. Okay, so our body is going to be a stack widget. We need to put widgets right on top of our main screen, not our main screen, but our bottom navigation bar. Okay, or down below. They're going to be below our bottom navigation bar. So our bottom navigation bar is going to be on top of the screen, and the pages are going to be showing from behind. Okay, so in here, what we're going to have, we're going to require children. Okay, so let's leave it like this at this particular moment. Let's just add consts like that. So this is this page that we need to go ahead and hook to our main.dart. Okay, here, instead of having this my home page, we're going to have main screen. Okay, like that. So in our main screen, we need to create our bottom navigation bar. But before we do that, let's just add a container here. And we are going to give this container height. And this height is going to be height. Okay, so let's get rid of const over here. Before we proceed, what we need to do, we need to go ahead and visit this height is within our constants. Okay, let's give it the right spelling like that. So that's the height that we're going to be using here from our constants. Okay, and let's give it a width, and our width is going to be width, and let's just give it a color. We can give it a color, okay, primary, like that. Okay, so here we need to go ahead and visit our application. Okay, let's try to restart our application. So this is our page, the page that we just created, the entry point. So if you change the color should change. Okay, so here, if we put off white, so that's going to be our entry point. So we need to focus on our bottom navigation bar. So for bottom navigation bar, the first widget that we're going to require is align, because we need to align our bottom navigation bar right at the bottom. Okay, so if we take a look at our application, we have to put our bottom navigation bar right at the bottom of our application. That's why we're using align. Okay, so align comes with the property alignment. Okay, so alignment, we're going to use bottom center, alignment dots bottom center, like that. After that, we need to provide a child. So as for the child, we're going to use a theme, because we need to change the color. We need to change the color of the bottom navigation bar, and we cannot do that without this theme widget. Okay, so we need data and we need a child. So the data is going to be coming from, let's say, not theme data, theme dots of context. And here we're going to take, let's just take anyone, canvas color. We're going to use copy width dots, copy width. And here we're going to have canvas color. Let's get rid of this canvas color, and we are going to make it primary, like that. And the child is going to be our bottom navigation bar. This is how we can change the color of the bottom navigation bar somehow, because if we set a color to a bottom navigation bar, it probably is not going to change. So this is how we set the color. Okay, so since we got that out of the way, so let's go ahead and have our bottom navigation bar. Okay, so our bottom navigation bar. So first we're going to take care of, let's take care of items. So I'm just going to put the dummy items first. Okay, so bottom navigation bar item is going to take an icon and a label. So in this instance, we are not going to use the label that much. We're going to get rid of it in our settings. But now let's just save. So if we save, we have our bottom navigation bar. Okay, but we need to tweak it to our own needs. Okay, so if we take a look at our bottom navigation bar, we need to have the right set of icons, the right colors, and the changes, because if we click, there's a color change on a different icon. Okay, so let's go back to our application, fine tune it until it meets our requirement. Okay, so here let's focus on the settings first, and then we can go ahead and work on our bottom navigation bar items. Okay, so the arrangement is correct. We're going to have profile, we're going to have home, search, cart, and then profile. So you can take these ones as they are, and then we're going to tweak them a little bit. So the first thing that we're going to need here, we're going to require show selected label, and we need to set it to false. We don't need to show the label. So if we save, then we don't have a label anymore. So if you want to show the label, you can just get rid of this property. That's up to you. But for this project, we are not going to show the label. So we need to get rid of it. Unselected, we need to set the same parameter, show unselected label, to false as well. So let's save. So here, we're going to track where we are using the colors. Okay, so we're going to have unselected icon theme. So if it is unselected, we want to give it a darker color. So we're going to use const icon theme data, and in our theme data, we're going to take care of the color, and our color is going to be, let's go with colors.black 38. So they're going to be faint, showing that they're unselected. And for the selected ones, we need to give them a color as well. We're going to go for the selected icon theme. We're going to give it an orange color. Let's go ahead and put and check our colors first, because they're a little bit, that's K secondary. That's the color that we want to use. So here, instead of K white, let's use K secondary, and let's add cons here. For the selected, we're going to have an orange yellowish color, and for the unselected, they're going to be faint black. Okay, so if we select the next one, then we're going to have a different color. But now we need to track where we are. Okay, to track where we are, we're going to be using our bottom navigation bar comes with a property on tab. We're going to, let's put it right on top. We need to have a function inside here, and this function here, we're going to take in a value. Let's just call it value, and on tab we need to print. Let's print the value. We need to track where we are, like that. Yeah, since we are printing the value, this value is the value of the index that we are on. So if we tap on the value, if we tap here, we are on index 0. If we tap, now we are on index 1. If we tap, we're in index 2, and then index 3. Okay, so we want to store this index inside of our get controller each and every time that we tap, and we are going to make our values inside of our controller observable. So we're going to be using OBS values, and to consume it on the inside the entry point, we're going to be using an OBX widget. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. We need to go ahead and create a new folder inside of our lib, and we're going to call it controllers. It's supposed to be controllers. Let's rename it, not controller. Inside of our folder, we're going to create a new file. In this file, we have to give it a name. Let's call it TabIndex Controller, and it has to be a .dot file. In here, we have to create a class, and our class name is going to be TabIndex Controller, and is going to extend get controller. Okay, and we need to import get inside of this controller. And after that, now we need to take care of our value. So we're going to use an RX value, which is going to be an RX int. So this is going to be a private. Initially is going to be 0. And to make it observable, we're going to use OBS. Okay, so we use OBS when we want to make a value observable. So OBS works hand in hand with RTX. In normal integer, we can just say int, and we don't use OBS. If we put it like this, we won't have an error. But since we want to make this integer observable, we can use RX int. And if you take a look here, since we've used RX int, here we have to make it observable. Okay, so we have to use OBS. So since we got that out of the way, now we need to create getters and setters. So we're getting an integer. Okay, so here we're going to have int get. So what we're getting, we're going to get tab index, and we're going to get our tab index from the private value that we have tab index. So here we have to add dot value. Okay, if we want to consume an observable value. So each and every time that we're going to be using OBS to get that value, we're going to access the private variable, and then we're going to get the value inside of that variable. Okay, so that's it for getting the value. Next, we need to create a setter. Okay, so here we can use void, or we can just create the function straight up like set. Okay, so here it's supposed to be set tab index. It's supposed to be tab index. So our tab index is going to take in an integer. So this integer is going to come from this value. Okay, so this is the value that we want to store inside of our controller. Okay, and this has to be lowercase, not uppercase. So here, let's give it a name, new value. Okay, we don't have to close it. And in here, we are going to set the private value, the private integer value, to this new value that we are getting from our bottom navigation bar. So here it's supposed to be tabIndex.value is equals to new value, like that. So that's it. We are done with creating our TabIndex controller. So right now we need to go ahead and hook this controller to our entry point. So to do that, we are going to hook it right here on top. So here we need to create a final and give the name that we're going to be using. So let's take, for example, you're coming from a provider background. So let's say when we say provider of, and we put the provider that we want to consume, is the same thing that we're doing here with GetX. Okay, so here I'm just going to give it a name, and I'm going to call it controller. Okay, so our controller, so here we're going to use get.put. Inside of these braces, the brackets, we need to mention the controller that we need to consume. Okay, so here we are consuming TabIndex controller. To use this controller, since we have an OBS value inside of our controller, we need to wrap this page inside of an OBX widget. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to wrap everything, this scaffold, inside of an OBX. Okay, so we're going to cut the scaffold, and we're going to have an OBX. If you're coming from provider, you wrap a widget inside of a consumer widget so that you can consume a provider. In GetX, you wrap a widget inside of an OBX to consume. So here, let's paste our code. So we have our code. We have to get rid of the errors. Okay, so our errors are gone. If we save this file like this, if we save, we are bound to run into this error. So for us to get rid of this error, we need to utilize the OBX value inside of our bottom navigation bar. So that's what we're going to do next. So here we need to use our controller. On tap, we need to go ahead and set index to value. Okay, since we are done with this part, the next thing that we are going to do, we are going to introduce current index. Okay, so this is the current index we are on. Okay, so our current index is going to be controller.tabIndex. If we reset this, we're not going to run into an error, because here we're utilizing our OBS value inside of our OBX widget. Our bottom navigation bar is working fine without any problem. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next step, which is we're going to be able to be alternating the icons that we're going to be saving to our UI. Our main focus is on the items list. Okay, so we didn't get into it much when we like just put these items. So right now we need to handle our icons. Our labels, we're not going to touch them as much, not even once. We're not going to touch the labels, but we're going to touch the icons, because we need a different set of icons than the ones that are being saved to us right now. So first, for home, we're going to be using InDesign. So if you just type InDesign, then you need to import Flutter vector icons. Okay, so this is something thing. Okay, they're not showing up. So here, let's get rid of const. Still not showing up. So if they're not showing up, what we need to do, we need to go ahead and import them manually. Okay, so let's go back to our browser. Instead of our browser, we need to go ahead and let's come back here and change the spelling to GetX. Okay, with a capital letter X, like that. Okay, and let's tick that. Okay, so here we need to go to Flutter vector icons. Let's go ahead and search for Flutter vector icons, the ones on top. So here I'm just going to copy this line. So let's just go to install. It's way easier, and copy this line from here. And we go back to our project. Okay, in our project, right on top, we need to import vector icons. So let's see whether we can access them. Yes. So here we need appStyle. The first one is going to be appStyle 1. Okay. So if we save, that's the icon that we are going to have. Right now, we need to use our controller to access our index. Controller.TabIndex. If our index is equals to 0, then we're going to display this icon. Else, we're going to display a different icon. We are going to have an outlined. Okay, so this one is a field icon. So if it is not selected, then we're going to have an outline. Let's go with that. Okay, so it's going to be like this if it is not selected, and if it is selected, we're going to have a field one. Okay, so if we go to the other index, it's going to be like this. Okay, so that's what we need to do. Let's go ahead and add consts, and let's format our code. So we don't need to take care of colors because our are being taken care of already. So we are done with our home. Next, we go to search. Search remains the same. The only thing that changed is the color. So search, we're going to leave it like that. The next index that we need to take care of is going to be our cart. Okay, so for our cart, we need to come down here. We need to, either way, we're going to be saving one icon here. So we're going to have open cart. Okay, so we don't need this extra logic. Okay, so let's just go ahead. So that's going to be our cart. So what we need to do here on our cart, we need to have a widget, to repeat it in a widget, and we're going to put a badge. So this icon is going to be the child of our badge widget. So if we hover over, our badge takes in text. So this label is going to be a string, a widget. So texts is going to be like that. So if we put 1, then we do have a badge with 1 here. Okay, so that's going to be our badge. So let's add const, and then we can move on to the next, which is our profile, and then we can. So for our profile, we are going to be using font awesome as well. So we can copy the name. So it's going to be font awesome. So if it is not selected, we're going to use circle all, and if it is selected, then we're going to use this one. Okay, so we need our tab index. So let's access our controller, and we need to get our tab index. If our tab index is equals to 3, then we're going to be displaying the first one, else we're going to display the second one. So let's just copy this icon, paste it over there. Okay, and we need circle all for the next one. So here we need to add const like that. So if it is selected, then it's going to be filled. If it is unselected, it's going to be unfilled. That's all that we need to do for our tab. The next thing that we need to focus on is going to be creating the pages that we're going to be saving here. Okay, so we need to go ahead and create all the 4 pages: the home page, search, cart, and the profile. those are the pages that we're going to be serving inside of our stack. Okay, so right now we need to go ahead and create a list of widgets that we're going to serve. So we're going to create a list right on top. So it's going to be of type widget, and we're going to give it a name. Let's call it page list. So let's just initialize it as an empty list for now, like that. And let's go ahead and remove const. So if we remove const, we need to go ahead and visit our main.dart. In our main.dart, we need to remove consts on our main screen. Okay, so let's just save that, go back to our entry point. Here I'm going to ignore the immutables, so we need to create the pages inside of our views folder. We're going to create folders. So the first folder is going to be for home, so we're going to put everything that we're going to have on our home page inside of this home folder. And we need to create another one for search. So everything that's going to go under search is going to come in this folder. That's including the widgets and the pages. And we need to create another one for the profile. After that, we need to create another one for the cart. So after creating these folders, we need to create the files. So the first file is going to be for the cart. So we can call it cut page, and it has to be a .dot file. Create a stateless widget. So we're going to be using stateless widgets in most of our pages just to save our memory, and we have to call it cut page, and we need to import material. After importing material, we need to return a scaffold. So we need to get rid of the container and return a scaffold. And our scaffold, we're just going to have an appbar, that's a dummy appbar, and we're going to have a text. Okay, so this text is going to be wrapped in a center widget. So that's for starters. So we're going to copy this page that we have here. We can select everything, copy, and we go to our next folder, which is home. So in home, we need to create a new file, and we are going to give it a name, home page, and it has to be a .dot file as well. And we can paste the code that we just copied from the previous page. After that, we need to change the name. So to select both, you can press Command D, and then you change the name here to home. Okay, so we just need to change this as well to home. Okay, so that's going to be our home page. And after that, we need our profile. So we're going to do the same. So here we need a profile page, and it has to be a .dot file. We paste the code. We're going to select all occurrence of cart, and we're going to change it to profile, and then we save, and let's go to our search. In our search, we create a new file. So it's going to be search page, and it has to be a dot file. And we do what we did for on the previous page. In this one, it has to be search, like that. Then we save. So we need to go ahead and import these pages inside of our entry point. Okay, so we can close them since we don't require them at this particular moment. So in here, we need to put these pages. So the first one is going to be mapped to our first index, which is our home. So we need to have our home page here. Next, we're going to have our search. It's supposed to be after that. We're going to have cart. And lastly, we're going to have our profile. Okay, like that. And we need to add consts so that we won't have complaining lint over here. So we come right at the top, we add consts. So here we need to go ahead and hook this list inside of our stack. So it's going to be our parent widget inside of our stack. Okay, so we need to get rid of this container that we have here. And here we're going to have page lists. Okay, so inside of page list, we need to pick which page are we on. Okay, so in order for us to achieve such a thing, we're going to be using our index inside of our controller. So we need to access our controller here, and we need to get the tab index. So if we save, we should have home page right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to reset. Okay, so that's our page. If you press, now we're on search, and if you press the next one, we're on cart, and if you press the last one, then we're on profile. So that's all that we need to do for our entry point for the meantime. Next, we're going to move on to just work on our design a little bit for all our pages, because if you take a look at our application, we do have this slick design where we have this is all in the pages, not in the entry point. Okay, so we need to go to our home page, and then we can style our pages, and then we can just copy the style over to all of our pages. Back to our bucket list. So we need to cross this bottom navigation bar of our bucket list. So the next thing that we're going to focus on is this design that we have here, and then we can move on to everything else that's on our home page. Okay, so we don't have that on our bucket list, so we can as well add it. So we are going to give it a name, custom container. Okay, it's supposed to be a custom container here. Okay, so this is the one that we want to focus on right now. So the custom container is the one that gives us this style. Okay, so let's go ahead, visit our project and start working on it. So going back to our project, inside of our project, we need to go ahead, create a new folder inside of our lib folder, and we're going to call it common. Okay, so here we're going to be storing all the shared widgets that we're going to have inside of our application. So the first thing that we're going to require in here is a new file, and we're going to call it custom container. And it has to be a .dot file. Okay, so this custom container is going to be a stateless widget. Not a stateful, but it's going to be a stateless. Okay, so let's give it a name, custom container. Like that. Okay, we need to import material. After importing material, we need to get rid of this container, and we need to wrap this in a size box. Okay, so inside of our size box, we're going to require height. So the height that we're going to use here, we are going to be using media query. We're not going to be using the one that we have in our constants. So here we're going to have the media query of context dot size dot height, and here we're going to take 0.75. Okay, and width, we're going to give it a width of width. Okay, like that. We might get rid of the width later on, but for now, this is what we need. Next, we're going to require a child inside of our size box, and inside of this, the first thing that we're going to require is a clip rect. Okay, so clip rect, we're going to have border radius. So this border radius, we're going to have a border radius dot only, and inside we need bottom left and bottom right. Okay, so bottom left is going to be radius dot circular, and we're going to give it a 30. So since we're utilizing screen utils, we have to put .r, and let's copy this and paste it down, and we change this to right. Okay, So our clip rect takes in a child, and our child is going to be a container. Let's see, we're inside of border radius, so we need to get outside and put a child. So our child is going to be a container. So this width that we have on top, we can cut it from here and put it inside of our container. And here, this container, we need to give it a color. So we're going to give it a color of white. And we need to give our container a child. And the child that we're going to give it is a single child scroll view. Okay. And a single child scroll view takes in a child. So we are not going to put a child in here, but we are going to require the child from outside where we are going to be using this widget. Okay, so let's say we're using it in home page. So whatever we are going to put here is the things that we're going to put inside of our home page. Okay, so let's come to the top, and on the top we need to have a widget. In this widget, we have to give it a name. I'm going to give it a name, container content, like that. And we need to put it here, this dot container content, and we need to get rid of the const. Okay, it's a required parameter. So let's see. Okay, we have to remove const. So here we need to just get rid of complaining lint, and we need to pass this container content to this child. Okay, like that. So we are done with this widget. Let's go ahead and close it. Okay, so after closing it, we need to go back to our home page. So we need to visit our views inside of our home page. The first thing that we need to do, we need to get rid of this bar. We need to just put preferred size. So preferred size, tag preferred size and a child. So here we're going to have size from height, and we're going to give it a 130. Okay, that's the first thing. Let's close this bar, and we need to give it a child. So we're going to just put a container. In this container, we need to give it a height. So let's give it a height of 130 as well. So let's save. So that's going to be our imaginary air bar for now. Next, we need to get rid of the center widget and the text widget that we have. And let's wrap our body in a safe area first. So a safe area takes a child. So the child that we're going to put is our custom container. It's supposed to be custom container. So our custom container takes in a child, which is the container content. So let's just put an empty container here. Yeah, okay, like that. So if we save, we're not going to see anything. So we need to add scaffold. We need to add background color here. So our background color is supposed to be K primary. Okay, like that. Yeah, okay. And the next thing that we need to do now is to work on our app bar. We have our design showing up, but before we work on our app bar, let's just transfer this style to all of our pages, right? Because here we have a different look. We just want a uniform look from this page to all of our pages. So what we can do, we can just copy the scaffold from this page and we can paste it in other 3 pages. So we want to go to our cart. Instead of our cart, we replace the scaffold and we need to import our constants and we need to import this custom container as well. So if we save, we probably run into an error. We need screen utils, so we don't have an error. So if we go to our cart, so our cart is now the same as our home page. So we need to do the same for our search as well as our profile. So let's go ahead and paste the code here and then just import. And we also need screen utils for this one. Okay, so let's close that one. So the last one is the profile. So for the profile, we need to do the same. First, we're going to import screen utils. Then we're going to import colors from our constants. And then we need our custom container. Then we save. So right now, if you visit all these pages, now they have like a uniform design. Okay, so we are done with our custom container. The next thing, we need to go ahead and just create this bar so that we can have it on our home page and some other pages that we might need to use it in. Okay, and then we can go ahead and create everything that we need to create for our home page. Okay, so our main focus is going to be our home page. After designing our home page, we need to go on to system design, explain a little bit, and then we can jump into our backend, because once we are done with UI, we need to be integrating our front end to our backend, and at the same time we'll be introducing Flutter hooks so that we will just reduce the amount of code that we're going to be writing when we are processing the data that we're going to get from our REST API. Okay, so let's check this custom container of our bucket list, which is going to be our custom app bar. Okay, and we have to take this off our bucket list because we are already done with it. So we ran into an error, and this is our error, the error that we're facing. If you try to run our application, we won't be able to run it. So there's an easy fix to it, and the fix will be provided for you beforehand. Okay, so probably you won't be running into the same error that I ran into. So I have a fix to the problem here. We need to just make a little bit of a change inside of our pod file. So we need to go back to our project. We still have the same error. So if we come back to our project, open iOS pod, and then we want to replace like from line 40 to line 44 with the code that I just copied from my file, and we save. If we save this and try to run the application again, probably the application will run successfully without any error. So let's go ahead and try. So the piece of code is provided for you and you will find it. So the pod file is going to be attached with the starter code. So if you run into the same error, probably you just need to revisit the file and then you can just copy the solution to the problem, and then you can continue with the project. Since we're waiting for our application to run, we need to make a few changes. So to this row that we have in our CustomAppBar, we need to wrap this row inside of another row. Okay, like that. So at the second one, the second row, main axis alignment, we need to get rid of it. We need cross-axis alignment here. So we need cross-axis alignment dot end. And in the first we need main axis alignment, and it's going to be space between, and we need cross axis alignment, and it has to be end, and we need to save. So our application is about to open. After it open, then we need to go ahead. Now, okay, so that's going to be our app bar, but we still need to make some changes to it. So this text is supposed to be in the second row. Okay, like that. And we need to reduce this radius to, let's reduce it to a 20. Let's give it a 23 so that it won't be too big. Okay, so you can change the radius to a size that you can see fit, but 22 would do for me. So that's it for our CustomAppBar. Since we're done with this part, we need to go ahead and visit our bucket list, and then we want to just check some things off our bucket list. So let's go ahead and remove the CustomAppBar. So we are done with that. Next, we're going to focus on our time function to have dynamic time. Right now, let's go ahead and put an image inside of our circular avatar. So here, we're going to require a background image. And our image is supposed to be a network image. And we need to provide a URL for our image. So I'm just going to pick an image of the images that I have, and you should do the same because the image is not going to be provided for you. So if you have an image that you want to use, you can go and use that. It's no problem. Just pick any random image. Let's hope it will fit in without any problems. So we're just going to paste the image and we're going to save. Okay, so our image has been successfully placed. So the next thing we're going to focus on is the time function. Okay, so for our time function, we need to just go ahead and create the function right underneath. Okay, so it's going to return a string, get time of day, like that. So here we're going to have date time is equals to the datetime.now. Right underneath, we're going to have an integer. Hour is equals to now.hour. Okay, so we want to use the hours to get our time. So we're going to have some conditions down here. Okay, right underneath, we're going to have an else if, and down below, we're going to have an else. So that's going to be our structure like that. So let's just go ahead and put our conditions. So our first condition is going to be greater than equal to 0. That's 12. Then we're going to return daytime. Okay, so let's just put a string in here. We'll go ahead to Emojipedia and get the emojis that we need. For the second condition, let's go ahead, copy this, paste it here, and it's supposed to be 12. That might be, it's less than, let's put 16 here. Then we're going to return another empty string, else we're going to return something here. So we need our emojis. Go ahead and visit Emojipedia. We need to open our browser. So for the evening, I'm going to pick up this. So I'm just going to copy the emoji, go back to our project, and that's the one that I'm going to paste way below. Just add a little bit of space. Let's search for the sun. So we need both of them, sun behind the clouds and the other one. So after, like, in the afternoon, let's just give it a little bit of space. Try to get rid of that now. And let's go ahead and check the other one. That's for the morning. Okay, we get that one. and we go back to our project and we paste it here. So we're going to be calling this function here. Okay, so since it returns a string, then it will return these emojis. Okay, and let's just put consts on our text style. Okay, so it's in the morning, like this side where I am, it's in the morning, so the time is correct. So we're done with that part. So for this app bar, what's left is to have location. So location is something that we can handle a little bit later, since we're going to require it like in the later stages of development. Let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. So we're going to go to categories, CategoryList, and CategoryWidget. So the data for our categories is already provided inside of our const. So if you come to UI data, we have data here. Okay, so we have here for categories, and we have data for restaurants, and we have data for food, cart, and the dummy profile. So the choices list, we're not going to be using it, but this is the data that we're going to be using to create our UI. And then when we have our REST API, then we can get rid of this static data, and then we can put dynamic data that we're getting from our REST API. So let's go ahead and move on to our next step. So before we move on, we go back to, and then we're going to take off the time function of our bucket list. So right now we're going to proceed to deal with the list, the category list here in category widgets. Okay. So before we go, let's put a cap here. Okay, so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to focus on creating the category list. So let's visit our application. So we have this list that we're displaying here. That's the list that we want to create. Okay, so we're going to be using the data that's provided. So if you have imported this constants folder, you have the data. Okay, so this is the data that we're going to use to create our UI. And when we have our dynamic data, then we are going to replace static data with our dynamic data from our REST API. So let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to go to our lib folder and visit views. So in views, we need to come to home. Inside of our home folder, we need to create a new folder, and we need to call it widgets. Okay. So after creating the folder, we need to create a new file. In this file, we have to call it, it's supposed to be category here, and it has to be a .dot file. Okay. So after creating the file, we need to create our widget. So we're going to create a stateless widget, and we need to give it a name. So the name is going to be category lists. After writing the name, we need to import material. After importing material, let's just go ahead and leave this like this for a minute. Go back to our home page. In our home page, we need to change what we are returning here in our container content. So instead of returning a container here, we're going to return a column. Okay, so we need children. Let's bring the children down like that. We need children. So our category list is going to be our first child. Okay, so, and that's going to be the widget that we are serving here. Okay, so let's go back to our category list. The first thing that we need to do, we need to give a height to this container. Okay, so we are going to do it a little bit different from the ways that we used to do it, because the main objective of this course is to propel you to be an advanced developer. So we are going to minimize the lines of code that we write by any means possible. Okay, so most of you might be using like list view builders, but for this one, we're not going to be using a list view builder. So let's just go ahead and have our height here. We're going to give this height of 80. Okay, so we need to include our screen utils. After that, let's go ahead and give our container a little bit of padding. So we're going to give it a padding, and here we're going to use agencies.only, not symmetric, but only. So we need to manipulate the left side and the top side. So on the left, we need to give it a 12, okay? And on the top, we need to give it a 20. Not a 20, but a 10. Let's give it a 10. After that, let's go ahead and give our container a child. Okay, so for a child, we're going to return a list view. So our list view takes in children, but before we return the children, we're going to go ahead and have scroll direction. So we need to scroll everything horizontally, okay, like that. And we need to pass children here. So for children, we're not going to pass children like that, but we're going to pass a list. We're going to generate a list, list.generate, and we're going to access the list that we have in our constants, in our UI data, okay? We want to access this category list and get the length, okay? So it's supposed to be categories.length, like that. And here we're going to take the index, and then we're going to return whatever we want to return. So I'm going to use I instead of index. So here, instead of returning now, we're going to return something. It's supposed to be returned. So let's return a container. So here, this is the origin of our error. We have an arrow function and we have braces. So probably that will cause a conflict. So we've gotten rid of the error. So what we need to do here, we need to create a new variable before we return anything. So we need to have our category. So our category is equals to categories. Then we're accessing the index that we are on. So here we have a dynamic category. So inside of the container, that's where we are going to put our widget, our category widget. So our category widget, let's go ahead and create it. So first we need to give it a margin, okay? So here, let's give it a margin of agencies.only, and we need to manipulate the right side. So on the right, we need to give it a 5, not a 15, but a 5. After that, we need to give it a padding. We need to give it a padding to the top. So here, we're going to have agencies.only. So we need to manipulate the top side, and to the top, we want to give it a 4. After that, we need to go ahead and give it a width. Okay, so we're going to give it a width. Our width is going to be the width that we have in our constants, and we need to multiply it by 0.19. Okay, like that. And we need to have decoration text box decoration. It's supposed to be box decoration here. The first thing that we're going to require is border radius. So for border radius, we're going to use border radius dot secular. Okay, and we're going to give it a radius of 10. Okay, and let's give it a border. So for border, we're going to use border.o, and we want to give it a border color and a border width. Okay, so for color, it has to change somehow, because when we select a category, we need to show that it's selected, and the width here, we'll deal with it a little bit later. Okay, so let's just go with 0.5. Yeah, okay, so those are going to be our categories. So now we need to have a column inside of our container to show our image and our title. Okay, and don't worry about these lines. These lines are going to show only to a selected category. Okay, so right below our box decoration, outside of our box decoration, we need to have a child, and our child is going to be a column. So our column requires children, so we're going to have two children. The first one is going to be a size box, and our size box has to have a height, and we need to give it a height of 35. So that's supposed to be height, and we need to give it a height of 35. After that, we need to give it a child, and here we're going to have an image. So our image is supposed to be image.network, since our images are coming from the internet. So here we're supposed to access the data that we have in this category. Okay, so every index item is being stored in a dynamic category, so we need to access the data from this dynamic category. Okay, so here we're going to call our category, and then we are going to take an image URL. So if you visit our UI data, this is our image. Okay, so this is what we're going to take, an image URL, not an image. So if we paste this here and save, we have a set of images here, and we need to just go on and do one more thing. We need to provide fit. Okay, so here fits checks in box fit. So our box fit is supposed to be boxfit.contain, like that, and we're going to put text widget right underneath our size box. So we're going to use our reusable text widget down below here. So let's go ahead and do that. So our text is going to come from our category, and here we need to access this title. Okay, so here we are going to paste title, and we need to give it a little bit of a style. So we're going to have our appStyle. So let's give it a size of 12. And for the color, we're going to use KDark. And for the font weight, we're going to make it normal, like that. So let's go ahead and save. So we have our names and we have our categories. So what's left now is to go on and handle the logic of this button. So if we click on it, that's where we should just show the border. So let's come to the border. So here our border, initially it should be K off white. So if we put it to K off white, then the color won't show. Okay, so we need to create a controller where we are going to be storing which index are we on. Okay, and if you're on a particular index, that index should have a border with K secondary. Okay, but we are done creating our list. So next, let's go ahead and wrap this container with a gesture detector. So the logic is going to come inside here. So we're going to have on tap function like that. Working on this widget, what we need to do is to handle our on tap. So to do that, we need to go ahead and create a new controller. So we're going to go to our lib folder. Inside of our lib folder, we're going to controllers. And in our controllers, we're going to create categories controller. Okay. So after creating the controller, let's go and create the controller first. Let's call it category controller, and it has to be a .dot file. So in here, we need to create a class. So this class is going to be category controller, and it has to extend GetX controller. So here we're extending GetX controller. So we have our get imported right on top. So in here, we can go ahead and deal with the variables that we need to handle. So we need to have OBS values. So these are going to be observable. We need to be reading the changes. And when we are selecting and unselecting our category, we need to be reading those changes. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to create two RS strings. So first, we're going to have an RS string. In this string, we're going to give it a name category, and we're going to initialize it as an empty string, an empty OBS string. So we need to make this category value observable. That's why we're adding OBS here. So we need to create getters and setters. So right at the bottom, what we need to do first is to create a getter. So we're going to have string category, and this category is going to be, so it's supposed to be string get category. And here we're getting our category value from this rx string. Okay, so we're going to have category dot value, supposed to be value here. So here it's not supposed to be equal. Now let's change this to category value. So we can make this a private variable, the rx string, like that. And we need to create another function to set the value of this private variable that we have here. So we're going to have, we can just go ahead and set update. Let's give it a name, update category. That's the name of the function that we're going to be using to update our category. So in here, it takes a string. So this string is going to come from our on tap. Okay, so when we tap, we're going to be passing the value of the widget that we pressed to this function, and this function will set the value to this rx string. And when we are getting the value, we're going to be using this getter to get the value, and then we can do what we want with the category value. Okay, so let's finish up. Right at the bottom, we're going to have our private category dot value is equals to the value. So this value is the value that we're getting from the tab. Okay, so that's the first. We need to create two. So the next one is going to be the same, but it's going to be for the title. Okay, so I'm just going to select category here, and then just select all occurrence of the category, and I'm going to change the name to title. Okay, and when it comes to the setter function, we can capitalize this to update title, and let's ignore this in the whole file. Okay, so that's our controller. We're done with our category controller. So what we need to do, we need to go back to, before we go back, let's just give it a correct name here. It's supposed to be controller. And let's go back to our category lists. So on press, when we press on our category, then we need to update these values inside of our controller. But first we need to instantiate our controller. So we're going to have final controller is equals to get.put, here get with a capital letter G, and here we need to have the name of the controller that we are consuming. So here we are consuming category controller. Okay, and we need to import get in this file. Okay, so now that we have our controller, if we tap, we're going to update both values. The both values that we are going to update, we're going to update the category value and the category title. Okay, but we're going to have a condition, right? Okay, so here we need to access our controller, and we need to get the category value. If the category value is equals to the category ID, then we need to unselect. Okay, so we need to set the value to the initial value. Okay, we need to use controller dot, supposed to be update category, and we need to set the title to the initial state, like that. Else we're going to go ahead and and set. Okay, so we're going to put it like that. Okay, category controller dot update category, and then we're going to push the category ID to our category value, and the title as well. We need to push it to our title. So these are two scenarios, but we do have a third scenario, because if a user presses on more, they're supposed to be redirected to another page. Okay, so we're going to push this else a little bit down. Okay, so here we're going to have else if, like that. So if controller dot category value, this is we can use category value, or we can use title, but title is the more efficient one, because the title is always going to be the same. Okay, so if the title is equals to more, okay, so let's go ahead and check our UI data. Let's check our title. So the title is going to be consistent throughout the application. So more, if the title is equals to more, then we're going to push another page. Okay, so here we're going to get to a particular page with all the categories. Okay, it's not supposed to be like this, and we need the page here. We can call it all category. So we haven't created the page as yet. So here we're going to have a transition. We're not going to use left to right, but we are going to use fade in, and we need to set a duration. So for duration, we're going to use a duration of, let's go with 900 milliseconds. So we need to create this page, and let's close this here. Let's add consts. So here we just need to copy the name. After copying the name, let's go ahead and create a new folder. In this folder, we're going to call it categories, like that. Let's create a new file, and we're going to call it all categories, like that, and it has to be a .dot file. Instead of our .dot file, we're going to create a stateless widget, and we have to give it a name, and the name is supposed to be all categories. And let's import material, and here we're just going to return a scaffold, and we're going to just put an appbar with just a title in it. Okay, so we're not going to put a body. This is something that we can handle a little bit later on after we're done. Okay, so let's go back to our category lists. In our category list, we need to import this page. Okay, so let's import the page. After importing the page, let's add const over here. Supposed to be const. So for us to be able to read the changes inside of our controller, we're going to have an OBS. We're going to wrap this widget inside of an OBX. Okay, so this container, we have to wrap it inside of an OBX. So let's just close it, and we're going to, let's go ahead and cut it first. And here we need an OBX. So as we said before, if you're coming from provider, an OBX is like a consumer widget. It will help us to read the changes inside of our controllers, especially when we're using observable values. Okay, so now we have an OBX, we can be able to use our observable values. So here we need to get rid of this. Instead of getting rid of it, let's just go ahead and set the the logic. So here it's supposed to be controller dot category value. If the category value is equals to category ID, okay, this has to be a string. Let's push the code. Then the color is supposed to be K orange. Else the color is supposed to be K off white, like that. So if we save, then we have nothing selected. So this is what our categories are going to be looking like. So if we select something, then we'll get the border here. Okay, so that's exactly what we need. So if we click again, then it's going to be unselected. If we click on the next, this is what's going to happen. So here we can try to reduce the size a little bit to, let's reduce it to 75. Okay, 75 will do. So that's working as planned. So if we go to the last one, which is more, and if we click on it, we're supposed to be redirected to another page. So let's just go ahead and fix this, because if we click on it, we're not supposed to have this. We're supposed to be just redirected to all categories. Let's go ahead and visit our gesture detector. Inside of our gesture detector, let's come to else if. So here we're not supposed to use the controller. We're supposed to use the category directly. So here, if category, that's category value, is equals to more with a lowercase. So if you use it like this, it should work. We should be redirected to this page. Alternatively, you can use the title. So if you're using the title, then this should be uppercase. Okay. So if you click, then the functionality is the same. So I'm going to keep the value. So we're done with this part. So here, let's see what we can do differently. Let's go ahead and put this widget in a separate widget. We don't want it to be, we don't want everything on the same page. So we're going to extract the widget. Supposed to be category widget. Okay, so here we're just going to have our category is going to be a dynamic category, and everything else remains the same. So here we're passing the controller, but we can get rid of the controller from here. Okay, let's get rid of the controller. After getting rid of the controller, we get rid of it from our formal parameters, and we get rid of it from here. Okay, so we need to have an instance of our controller inside of our widget. So here we're going to have final controller is equals to get put category controller. So our widget should work without any problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and try. Okay, so that's what we need to do, and we need to move this category widget to a separate file. Okay, so if you just hover over, you can move category widget to a file, and then you can choose where you want to put it. So I'm going to put it inside of widgets. Okay, so if we go to our files, home widgets, we have category list, and we have the category widget, the widget that we just passed like now. Okay, so inside of our category lists, we're not going to be requiring this controller, so we need to get rid of it, and we need to get rid of all the dependencies that we are not using in here. So this is how much code that we are using. Okay, and here everything is okay. So we are done with our category lists. So let's go ahead to our to our bucket list, and we can cross this off our bucket list. Then we can move on to our next widget. Okay, so here we're done with the category widget and we're done with the category list. Next, we're headed to our heading widget because we need this heading widget. Okay, so we're going to be creating one reusable heading widget that we're going to be just changing the titles. Okay, so we're going to create it once and once only, and then we can reuse it throughout our application where necessary. To do, we just want to follow a pattern. Let's just call it a domino effect. So here, since we're done creating our lists, if we go to more, then we do have this page, but we still need to handle whatever comes here. So let's handle this and then we can move on to the other widgets and we can do the same. So the first thing that we need to do when we get to this page, the all categories page, we need to design how it's going to look and how we are going to list all our categories. Okay, so here we have to visit our views, categories, all categories. So inside of our all categories, we do have our appbar. Okay, so our title still remains the same. So we need to add a little bit of more properties inside of our appbar. The first one being elevation. Okay, so we need to give it an elevation of 0, like that. So we won't have that shadow underneath our appbar, and we need to give it a background color. So our background color is going to be Off-White, like that. Okay. So here, let's just go ahead and use our reusable text widget. So here it's supposed to be all categories. And we need to handle our appStyle. So let's bring our style down. And here we're going to map it to appStyle. We need to give it a size. So we're going to give it a size of 12. And let's give it a color. So for color, we're going to go with a grayish color. So we're going to give it Gray. And for the font weight, we're going to give it W600. So let's go ahead and pick W600 and let's save that. So that's going to be our title. So we got this out of the way. So next, what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and have our body. Since we're in a scaffold, we require a body. So here we're going to have a body. So our body is going to be a container. Okay, so inside of our container, we're going to require height and padding. So first, we need to deal with our height, and the height is going to be the height from our constants. So that's our height. But right on top of our height, we need to include padding. So padding, we need to have padding to the left and padding to the top. Okay, so here we're going to use edge insets. Supposed to be edge insets dots only. So we need left, and to the left we are going to give it a 12, and to the top we're going to give it a 10. Okay, so here it's supposed to be dot h. When it comes to the top, to the left it's supposed to be dot w, like that. Okay, so now we need to handle what comes inside of our container. Okay, so inside of our container, we're going to require a child. Okay, so our child is going to be a list view. Okay, so here we are going to use the same approach that we've used for our other lists, this category list. Okay, so this is the same approach that we're going to use. So we're going to get this list view from our category list, and we are going to place it here. Okay, so this remains the same. So we need to import the data from our constants, and what we are saving here is going to be different. Okay, so we need to get rid of this. So for starters, we're going to have a list tile. So for our list tile, we're going to have a leading and a title. Okay, so first let's go ahead and have leading. So our leading is going to be a circular avatar. So inside of our circular avatar, we need to give it a radius, and we're going to give it a radius of 18. Okay, let's give it a radius of 18.r since we're using screen utils, and then we need to have a background color. So for background color, we can go with, let's go with gray light. Okay, we do have gray light inside of our constants, and we want to include an image. So this image is supposed to be a background image. So here, since it's a network image, we're going to use the network image widget, and then we need to provide the URL. So since we are using our dynamic data, we are going to access our category, and then from our category, we're going to get image URL like that. Okay, so we need to save that. Okay, we do have an error because we didn't change the direction of our list here. So it's supposed to be vertical. So let's go ahead and just hot restart. Okay, after hot restarting, this is what we can get. So we need to go to more. Now, okay, so these are our images. So this lists, when we are consuming it from our REST API, this last one, the last option is not going to show. Okay, so we have logic for that in the backend, not in the front end. So don't worry about it. So here we need to go ahead and just include fit, because we don't want our image to take up all the space. Okay, so we're inside of the network image. Let's see. Okay, instead of using a network image here, what we can do, we can use the image dot network. Okay, and we change this to a child like that. And inside of our network image, we need to include the fit property. Okay, so our fit is going to be box fit. It's supposed to be boxfit.contain. We need to contain the image. So we are done with this. Now we need titles. Okay, we need titles. So if we go ahead and visit our application and visit more, we should have something like this. Okay, so here we're going to work on the design as well so that it can look exactly the same. So first we're just going to change the title from all categories to category. Okay, so let's go back to application, and here, since we're in a list tile, we're going to require a title. Okay, so that should be right outside. We need a title. So for a title, we're going to use ReusableText Widget, and we need to provide our title. So our title is coming from our category, and we need to access the title here. And let's go ahead and include our style. So for our style, we're going to use appStyle. The size is going to be 12, and the color is going to be gray. The font weight here is supposed to be normal, not W600. So let's go ahead with normal and then save. So this is what we have, and we need to put a trailing right at the end. Okay, so after our title, we're going to put trailing. Supposed to be trailing. So for trailing, we're going to put an icon, our icons, and we're going to get arrow iOS, and it's supposed to be forward rounded, not back, but it's supposed to be forward. Okay, that's the icon that we're looking for. And we need to give it a color and a radius. So for color, we're going to go with K-grain. And then for the size, supposed to be size, not radius. For the size, it has to be a little bit smaller. So we are going to give it a size of 15. Let's do it like that. So that's going to be our category list. So we're not done as yet, because we need to just have the same style as the one that we just seen in this application. Okay, so let's go back. So we need to wrap this body inside of another custom container. Okay, so that's the container that we need to create. So what we are going to do, we're going to go to our files, go to common. Inside of common, we need to create a new file, and we need to call it background container. Okay, let's make sure everything is correct. Here we do need to put an R, and we need to make it a dot file. Okay, so it's supposed to be .dart. After that, we need to create a stateless widget. So that's a stateful. We need to make it a stateless widget, and we need to give it a name. So the name is supposed to be BackGroundContainer, like that. And we need to import material. After importing material, then we need to handle the widget that we're going to pass in here. So first, we're going to return a container. After returning a container, we need to give this container width, and we need to also give it a height. So width is going to be the width that we have in our constants. And let's go ahead and give it a height. So the height is going to come from our constants as well. So we need to give it a decoration. So for decoration, we're going to have a box decoration. So inside of our box decoration, we're going to give it a color. Okay, so first thing is going to be the color. So for now, let's go ahead and give it just a random color. We're going to be changing that in a little bit. And right at the bottom, we need border radius. So for border radius, we are going to be handling the top radius. Okay, the top radius, because we need a curvy design right on top. So here is supposed to be a radius, and our radius is supposed to be border radius dot only. Okay, so let's just go with those suggestions. So instead of bottom here, we're going to go with top, like that. So here we need to give it a radius of 20. Okay, so we need to get rid of the constant from here. So that's going to be our container, and we need to add an image right at the, like, on the background of our container. So if you take a look at our design here, we do have an image. Okay, so that's the image that we want to put. So to do that, inside of our decoration, we are just going to put a decoration, an image. It's supposed to be image here. So our image is supposed to be decoration image. So our decoration image, it takes in an image. Okay, so here we're going to consume an asset image. So we need to provide the path with which we are getting the image from. So we're getting our image from assets. It's supposed to be assets images, and we need to provide the name. So the name of our image is supposed to be restaurant_bk. Okay, and it's a PNG. So we need to provide fit. Let's get rid of this for a minute. Add a comma here. So we need to include the property fit, and box fit is supposed to be cover. Okay, so we are going with the first one. After that, we need to give it a little bit of opacity because we don't want it to just distract our users. So we need opacity, and we are going to give it an opacity of 0.7. Like that. Let's go ahead and save that, and let's add const over here. Okay, so we don't have errors. We need to give this container a child because we haven't added a child as yet. So down below, we need to give it a child, and our child, we're going to pass in a child from the parent widget that we're going to use this component in. So for example, we're using this in all categories. So the child should be passed from all categories. Okay. So we need to receive this widget. So to receive it, we need to create an instance of our widget here. So final widget, we are going to give it a name, child. Okay. We need to close that. And for our color, we're going to have the final color with the name color, like that. And let's close that. So this one, let's just put it as a final. So we need to provide the color. So let's save that. So now we can use this background container inside of our all categories. Okay. So let's just wrap this. Let's wrap the container in a widget, and then the widget that we want to wrap it in is background container. And we need to import this container, and we require a color. Okay, so let's go with colors.white to begin with. This is going to be our page. We have our design, but our color is not showing. Is not okay because we didn't pass the right color inside of our decoration. So here it's supposed to be color. So if we save, now we do have our design. Okay, so here we have off-white and we have a white in here, and we have our image. So we are done with this part. Let's go ahead and close that. So what we're going to do here, we're going to extract the list tile. Okay, the widget that we're saving here, we're going to extract it. But before we extract, we need to have on tap. Okay, so if we tap on a tile, then we're supposed to be redirected to a category page where we are viewing all the food in that particular category. Okay, so we need to get to a particular page. We don't have the pages yet, so we're going to have, let's just call it category page here. Okay, so we're going to be using the same transitions. So down here, we're going to have a transition, not from left to right, but we're going to use fade in, and we need to give it a duration. So for duration, we're going to just use the same. We're going to make it 900 milliseconds. It's supposed to be durations, milliseconds, and here it's supposed to be 900, and we need to add const over here. Right at the bottom, we need to just close. Okay, after closing, we need to go ahead and create this category page. So let's go ahead and visit our folders. Okay, so inside of folders, we need to go to category, to our lib folder. Instead of our lib folder, we need to go to views. Inside of views, categories, and we are going to create a new file. Okay, so this file, we're going to call it category page, and it has to be that file. Okay, so here we need to create a stateless widget, and we need to give it a name. So the name is supposed to be category page, and we need to import material first. After importing material, we can just have a scaffold here. Okay, so let's save that. And here we can have a body, and then just have a center. So let's leave it like that, and we come back here. We just need to import it. After importing, if we save, then everything will go as planned. Add consts or complaining linked is no longer complaining. And if we click on this, now we are being redirected to this page. And let's go back to our category page. In our category page, let's just add an appbar. So for appbar, we just want to save the title, and let's just reduce the elevation to 0. Okay. Let's give it a background color. So our color is going to be K off-white. Okay, so it's going to be like that for now. So once we're handling these, the categories, then we can do more. But for now, that's all for that page. We are done with this. So let's come here to our tile. So what we need to do, we need to extract this return widget. Okay, so let's go ahead and extract the list tile, and we're going to call it a category tile. Okay, so we've extracted the tile, so we can go with var, but we just need to get rid of final, and we get rid of const over here. Okay, so we are just doing the same as we did for the other page. So here we have our category tile, and we need to move this tile to a file. Okay, so in categories, let's just move it to categories, and then we need to create a new folder inside of our categories, and we are going to call it widget. Okay, so let's take, for example, in here in our categories, we can create a new folder with the name widgets. So that's where we are moving the file to, and we save both of the files. So if we go to our files, we go to categories, widgets, we have our new file in here. Okay, so let's go back to our all categories. Instead of all categories, we need to get rid of the unused code. Okay, so that's about it. So this is our page, the page that we just created. this page. Okay, so let's go back. We're done with our categories. Right now, we need to move on to our headings. So what we can do, we can close all these pages. We need to have our home page open. So in our home page, we just need to add a comma. After adding our comma, we need to insert our heading, our first heading here. Okay, so if we take a look, we're going to have our heading here. All right, so that's what we need to work on. As we said before, it's going to be a reusable heading. So we need to go to our lib folder. Inside of our lib folder, we're going to go to common, and here we need to create a new file, and we're going to call it heading. Okay, so it's going to be a dot file. After creating the file, we need to create a stateless widget, and we have to call it a heading. Okay, you can call it a heading or home heading, but I'm just going to go with heading in this instance. So let's import material. After importing material, let's just go ahead and save. The next thing that we need to do, we need to go to our return widget. Inside of our return widget, we need to add a padding. Okay, so we need to have our edge inserts, and we have to use symmetric, and we need to give it a padding on the horizontal side, and we are going to give it a padding of 12. Okay, like that. So after that, we need to give our container a child. So our child is going to be a row widget. So a row text in children. So for our children, we're going to have 2 children, but before we go on to add children to our row, we're going to require main axis alignment. So we're going to use main axis alignment space between. So inside of our children, first we need to have a padding. Okay, so padding, text padding. So here we need to have edge inserts dots only. Okay, we need to manipulate the top part of the widget that we're going to put inside of our padding, which is going to be a reusable text widget. So we need to give it a 10. Since we're manipulating the top, we need to include .h. So let's add a comma, press enter, come below, and we need to have a child. So our child is going to be a reusable text widget. Okay, so for a reusable text widget, we're going to take in text and style. So for style, we have to map it to our appStyle. So here, let's just go ahead and bring our style here. appStyle, we need to give it a size. We're going to give it a size of 16. And as for color, we're going to go with a dark color. So we're going to use KDark. And for font weight, we're going to go with a stronger weight. So we're going to go with font weight dot bold. Okay, so here we need this text, and this text is going to come from the parent widget that we're going to be using the widget in. So right at the top, we need to create a final string, and we have to give it a name. So the name that we're going with is text, since we have text here already, and we need to add this to our formal parameters. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to do. Let's save our widget. So right after this padding, we're going to require another widget inside of our row. So inside of our row, we're going to require an icon. Okay, so we're going to have these icons. So let's go back. Right at the bottom, we're going to have a gesture detector first, because our icon, we have to make it pressable. Okay, so we're going to have on tap. So on tap, we're going to map it to on tap. Let's just capitalize it here. After that, we need to have our child. So the child is going to be the icon that we're going to be rendering on our UI, on our home page. Okay, so here we're going to have icon. So the icon that we're going to go with, the icon font, is going to be InDesign. So from InDesign, we're going to use the same as the one that we used for our home. So we're going to go with store 1, and then we need to give it a color. So here for the color, we're going to give it secondary. And for the size, we have to make it a little bit bigger. So we're going to go with smaller, not bigger. It's going to be 20. Okay, so that's what we need to do, but we still need to have this on tap function, because when we're tapping on these icons, they're supposed to redirect us to different pages. So we need to handle this on tap. when we are using it, rather than to handle it inside of this reusable widget. Okay, so we're going to hover over on our on tab, and then we're just going to copy the type. Okay, the type and title. So here we're going to have another final, and then we paste the code that we just copied, and we close it. So we need to edit here. Okay, let's close that. So we are done with this. The next thing that we need to do, we need to go back to our home page. Now in our home page, we need to add our headings. So we're going to have 2 headings. Okay, so not 2 but 3. So we're going to have heading. So first we need to have our title. So the first title is going to be supposed to be nearby restaurants, if I'm not mistaken. So it's supposed to be nearby restaurants. So here it's supposed to be nearby restaurants. Okay, and then we're going to add on tab. So for now, we're going to just pass an empty function. So we have to get rid of this constant here. Okay, and let's add const over here to get rid of the complaining lint. Okay, so that's our heading. So we need to replicate our heading 2 more times. So we need to have 3 headings in total. So we're going to paste this, and we're going to paste it here again. So we need to have the right titles. So the next one is try something new. Okay, so we can just bring this application to front. It's supposed to be try something new, like that. Food closer to you, something like that. So the difference is the same. You can choose the name that you want to give it. So we have our 3 titles. So let's go back to our bucket list. So in our bucket list, we need to remove this heading from our bucket list. Okay, we are done with our heading widget, but before we move on, we need to take care of the pages that we're navigating to, because here we're going to be rendering a limited number of restaurants, a limited number of food. So let's take, for example, we are saving 5 items. So if we click on this icon, go to the next page, we're going to be rendering all the nearby restaurants, same as for the food and same as for fastest food closer to you. So we've added some more pages, some more tasks on our task list. So if you take a look, we have all these tasks that we need to finish before we can go ahead and work on these widgets, because we want to just get done with whatever comes inside of the heading, and then we can move on to these widgets that we're displaying on our home page. So without wasting any time, let's go ahead and start working on our project. So we need to open our project. In our project, we need to go ahead and deal with the first one, which is nearby restaurants. So here we need to get to all nearby restaurants. Okay, so it's supposed to be get to. In here we're supposed to create a page. So the page name is going to be all nearby restaurants. Okay, so we need to add a transition and the duration of the transition. So for a transition here, we're going to use Cupertino, and for the duration, we're going to maintain the same duration of 900 milliseconds. So here we need to change from 500 to 900, and we need to close it here. So we need to copy this, okay, and paste the code inside of try something new, and then we paste the code again inside of food closer to you. So here we need to create a new page. All fastest is supposed to be fastest food. Okay, and here this one is going to be a recommendation page. Okay, so these are recommendations. So we need to create these 3 pages. So we're going to create these 3 pages instead of our home page. Okay, instead of a home folder. So instead of a home folder, we're going to go ahead and create a new file. So the first one is going to be all nearby restaurants, like that, and it has to be a .dot file. So here we need to create a stateless widget. So the name is going to be the same name that we gave it in our home. It's supposed to be nearby here with an A. So we're going to copy the name, go back to our file, and we're going to paste the name here. We need to import material. After importing material, down here, we're just going to have a scaffold. So in our scaffold, we're going to have an appbar. So for appbar, we're going to have a title. For body, we're going to leave it like this for now. But for appbar, we need to do a little bit more. So first, we need to get rid of the elevation. So for elevation, if you visit our application, let's go ahead and click the first one. We need to have a little bit of elevation. So we're going to give it an elevation of 0.3 and we leave it like that. Okay. So let's go back to our application. So here we need to import this page. Okay. We need to import the page and we need to add const over here. And here we need to go ahead and create this page. So inside of our home, we create a new file and we're going to call it recommendations. It's supposed to be recommendations page and it has to be a .dot file like that. So here we can just copy whatever we have in here and we go to our recommendations page and we paste the code. After pasting the code, we can go back to our home page. We're going to copy the name, go back to our recommendations page, and then we're going to change the name to recommendations page. Okay, let's save that. After saving, here we're going to change this to recommendations. So let's save that and let's close it. Right after that, we need to import recommendations page like that, and we need to add const over here. So now we need to go ahead and handle our last page. So we need to create the file first. The name is supposed to be all fastest foods and it has to be a .dot file. After creating the file, we need to just go ahead and do the same as we did for our previous page. That is to copy the code and then we can just refactor it a little bit. So here we're going to copy the name and we're going to paste the name here and we need to change this. So here it's supposed to be all fastest foods. So we can just select everything and add some space. Let's go back to our home page. We need to import the page. After importing the page, we need to add const. Okay. So right now, if we click here, we're supposed to be redirected to this page. So the next thing that we need to do, we just need to change the color of the appbar as well as handling our text using a reusable text widget. So we need to visit these pages one by one. So we're going to start with all fastest foods. So here we're going to give it a background color. So our background color is going to be off-white. So if we go ahead and visit fastest food, that's going to be our appbar. And here we need to change this. But before we do that, let's go ahead and get the name. And we need to use a reusable text widget. So for our text, we need to paste the text that we just copy. So it's supposed to be all fastest foods and we need to give it a style. So here, let's go ahead with our appStyle and we need to give it a size. So for size, let's go with 18. For color, let's go with K-gray. And we need to give it font weight. So for font weight, we're going to go with W600. So what we can do, we can just copy the appbar from here and then we can change all the appbars in our following pages. So we need to import constants, then we import this reusable text widget, and then we are going to import our styles. So here our name is supposed to be all nearby restaurants, so we can just go with nearby restaurants like that. So let's copy this again and we do it for our recommendations. So we just paste and then we're importing our constants, reusable text widget, and then our appStyle. After that, here is supposed to be just recommendations. So that's going to be our title, and let's save. So if we go back, we visit this page, it's supposed to be recommendations. And if we visit this page, it's supposed to be nearby. Okay, so for fastest foods, instead of saying all, we can just say fastest foods. So we're done with that section. Next, let's come back and work on our widgets and our lists. Okay, so before we move on to that, let's go back to our lists. So in our lists, we have to get this off our list. These 3 pages, we are done creating them. So next, we're going to focus on our widgets. These ones we are done. Category lists and category widget, we're done with them. So we're going to be focusing on nearby restaurant widget, food widget, food list, and then the list form for our nearby restaurants. So we can as well add the lists right here like that. Okay. So we need to go ahead and create a new file inside of our lib folder. We visit our lib folder. Inside of our lib folder, we're going to go to views. Inside of views, we go to home. Okay. Instead of home, we go to widgets. Instead of our widgets, we're going to create a new widget and we're going to call it our nearby restaurants list, or we can say nearby list. Okay. So here, let's create a new file and let's give it a name. It's supposed to be nearby lists. Okay, so here we need to be specific to avoid any confusion. Nearby restaurants list, and it has to be a .dat file. All right, so we've created the list. So we need to create a stateless widget in here. So we need to give it a name. The name is going to be nearby restaurants. Okay, like that. And we need to import material. That's the first thing that we need to do. And down below, we are going to have our lists. Okay, and this list that we're going to save here. We're going to have a container first. So our container, we're going to give it a height. Let's give it an unspecified height. For the meantime, we can give it a height of 300 to begin with and make changes as we go. After that, we need to have a child. Okay, so our child is going to be a list view. Okay, so we need to go to category list and we just need to get this as it is. Okay, so let's just copy this container because everything is pretty much the same. And here, instead of having this category, we're going to have restaurants. Okay, and here we need to save another container. Let's have a container for starters. Let's give it a height, and we're going to give it a height of let's say 200, and let's give it a color like that. So here, let's give it 210 like that. So we need to go back to our application. So we have this restaurant list, but it's not being rendered on our UI because we haven't done anything to hook it up to our homepage. But still, we do have some changes to make. Here we need to change this to restaurants, and we need to change this to restaurant, not restaurants. Okay, so if we go to our homepage, right underneath, we're going to get this list and we're going to put it here. Okay, and we need to close it and we need to import it as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and import the list. We need to add a comma. So it's going to be like that. So let's see what's happening with our return, because we're supposed to have a color. Okay, we need to add width. So for width, we're going to just give it a random width for now. So if we add a width, now we do have our list. So just to be sure that our list is showing multiple items, we can add a little bit of padding, okay? Like that. So these are the items inside of our restaurant list. So we need to go ahead and work on our move forward and do the same for the other part. So we are obligated to create one widget, because when we are saving fastest feed, we are going to be using the same URL, which returns dynamic data. So either way, even if we are using one widget, is going to save different set of data each and every time. So let's take, for example, if we come to this application. So this is one widget that we're using, but each and every time that we call our API on this particular widget, it will return, if we're using the same hook in the next list, then it will return a different set of data. So we just need to create one that we're going to use in two places. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a food list. So in here, we're going to create a new file and we're going to call it FoodList, and it has to be a .dat file. After creating, we can do the same, just copy everything that we have here and we are going to paste it in here, and we need to change the name from nearby to FoodsList. Okay, like that. And then we save. In here, we need to change the data that we're consuming. We're consuming foods, okay, like that. And here is supposed to be food. So if we go back to our home page, in our home page, after try something new, we need to hook our foods lists, okay, like that. So we can have the same foods lists right underneath for closer to you. So that's going to be it. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on these one by one. We're going to do the restaurants first, and then we can move on to the food. Okay, so before we do that, we need to add consts, not ignore, but we just need to add const everywhere in the file. So let's go ahead and visit our list. So in our lists, we need to remove this list because we're done with it. We need to remove this list. So now we need to go ahead and work on this food widget as well as the restaurant widget. So this one's different. So these are different, but the ones that we're going to focus on are these two, the widgets, and then we can go on to the tiles, because the tiles are the ones that we're going to be consuming inside of these pages, but the widgets, we're going to consume them on our home page. Ahead and work on our nearby restaurant widget. So we need to go to our lib folder. Instead of our lib folder, we need to visit views. Instead of views, we go to home. Inside of home, we go to widgets, and then we go to nearby restaurants. So the first thing that we need to change when we get into this widget is the height. So we're going to give it a height of 194, right? After giving it a height of 194, we are just going to save it, okay? So we need to come to this return value, okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to just go ahead and create a new widget, and we're going to give it a name, restaurant widget, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it restaurant widget, and it's going to be a .dat file. Okay, so it's going to be a stateless widget. Let's give it the same name, restaurant widget. So here, let's import material. After importing material, and now we need to focus on our return. Okay, but before we get to our return, we're going to require several things from several variables from this list. We need to pass the variables when we are calling our widget here. So let's go ahead and do that. So right on top, we're going to have a final string. So the first one is going to be image. Let's just call it image. So we need a logo. We're going to require a title, and we're going to require time, and we're going to require rating as well. So this one, it has to be a variable as well. So we're going to make it like this. So it's supposed to be a rating, and down at the bottom, we're going to have a function. So here it's supposed to be a final void. It's supposed to be a function here. Okay, the spelling is wrong. So make sure that the spelling is correct and it can be nullable, and we have to give it a name. So let's go with on tap. We need to add them to our formal parameters like that. So right now we need to deal with whatever we're going to have inside of our widget. Okay, so first we're going to just wrap this in a gesture detector like that, and we're going to have on tap, and we're going to map on tap to on tap. Let's close this so that we can have a little bit of our reused. So here we're going to wrap this container in a padding. So our padding, we're going to use only But first, let's go ahead and remove consts because we want to utilize screen utils only. So here we're going to just manipulate the right side. So let's go ahead and mention the right side. We're going to give it a padding of 25. So here, since it's the right, we're going to use .w. So we're to the right, let's give it a 12, not 25. 25 is just too much. We are done with our padding. So now to our container, we need to give our container width. So we're going to give it a width of width multiplied by 0.75. Okay, so here we can just say 0.75 like that. And let's give it a height. So for the height, it has to be, let's make it 192. Okay, like that, since our height here is 194. Okay, so if there are any changes that we need to make, we can make them a little bit later. So let's proceed to our decoration. So we're going to have box decoration, and we're also going to have a circular border radius here. Okay, so we're going to add the decoration first. So inside, we're going to require border radius. Is for border radius, we're going to have border radius.circular, and our radius is going to be 12 here. Okay, so let's move on. After that, we need to give it a color. So for color, we're going to go with K light white. Okay, so we're done with our decoration. The next thing that we need to do, we need to go ahead and put whatever we are going to put inside of our widgets inside of a list view. So this is going to inside, we're going to have a list view. So a list view takes in children. But first, before we do that, we need to modify the physics of our list view. So our list is going to have never scrollable physics. Okay, so let's move on. So our list view takes in children. So we need to have the children that we're going to put inside. So the first child that we're going to put is going to be a padding. Okay, so padding, we're going to have a padding of agencies.all, and we need to give 8 to all sides. Okay, so our value is going to be 8 like that. So let's go ahead and give it a child. So our child is going to be a stack widget like that. So a stack takes in children as well. So we're going to have our children. So our first child inside of our stack is going to be a clip rect like that. Okay. So now that we do have our clip rect, we need to add border radius. So we need to give it a border radius of 12. So here we do have border radius.circular, and we're giving it a border radius of 12, and we need to give a child to this clip rect. So right underneath, we need to have a child. So our child is going to be a size box. So our size box, we have to give it a height. We're going to give it a height of 122, 112. Since it's height, we need to use .h. After that, we need to have a width. So for our width, we're going to have width multiplied by 0.8 like that. So right underneath, we're going to have another child. So this child is going to be an image. So it's supposed to be image.network. Okay, so we're going to consume the image that we have right on top. So this image is the image that we are receiving here. Okay, so don't get confused. Same as the onTap function. So what we can do, we can make changes. Okay, we can make changes whilst we are looking at our widget. So we need to hook it up, but before we hook it up, we need to change this name because it's a little bit wrong. So let's go ahead and rename. Okay, we just need to remove an extra A. After that, we need to go to nearby restaurants. Let's get rid of that, and we can have our restaurants widget. Our image is going to come from a restaurant. It's supposed to be image URL. So same as for our logo. So what we can do, we can go ahead and visit our constants, and we go to our restaurants. Okay, so we have image URL, we have logo URL. So here it's supposed to be logo URL. Okay, to get rid of the error, what we need to do, let's see, if we make it to string, the error will go away, but that might increase the complexity of our code to begin with. So what we can do of having a const, we can just have a list dynamic, just like what we did with this list here. Okay, so instead of putting consts, let's make it a list dynamic. Restaurants is supposed to be list dynamic like that. Okay, we save. After we save, if we come back to nearby lists, then we don't have an error here. So that's exactly what we need. So here we need the title. So we're going to do the same restaurant, and here we're going to get the title. Let's get the code in one screen so that we can just see everything. So here we're going to have time, and we're going to have rating. And here let's have rating. Let's go with rating count, because if we take a look at our data, we have a rating and we have a rating count. Okay, so we might need both, but we'll see about that when we are designing our widget. So let's go back to our restaurant widget. So we are displaying this image. The next thing that we need to do, we need to have fit. Okay, so here we're going to use box fit. We're going to fit with like that. So that's going to be our image. Right after our clip rect, we're going to have a positioned widget. Since we are in a stack, we're going to use a positioned widget. Our child is going to be another clip rect. Before, we need to position our positioned widget. So we need to have right. We're going to use 10. So that's supposed to be W. And to the top, we need to give it a little bit, which is 10 as well. So in here, we're going to put a restaurant logo. Okay, so before that, we need to give it a border radius. So here we're going to have our border radius. So we're going to have border radius dot circular, and we need to give it a 50 so that it can be circular. And we need to have our child. So the child is going to be a container. So we need to give our container a color. So let's go ahead, give our container a color. So the color is supposed to be light white. After that, we need to go ahead and give our container a child. So our child is going to be a padding widget. So our padding is going to be agencies.all, and we need to give it a value of 2. Let's go ahead and give our padding a child. And the child of our padding is going to be another clip rect. It will have the same properties, the same radius as the first one. Let's paste it in here, and then we're going to give the second clip rect a child, and the child is going to be a network image. Here we're going to use image.network, and our source is supposed to be logo. We need to give it box fit. We need to give it a fit. So our fit is going to be boxfit.cover, and we need to include the width and the height. Okay, so we're going to give it a width of 20 and a height of 20 as well. Okay, so here let's go ahead, give it a height of 20 as well. So for height, we're going to use .h, and for width, we're going to use .w, like that. So let's go ahead and save. So we do have like an image. So this image is supposed to be the logo of that particular restaurant. Okay, but we are done with that part. Next, we're going to focus on whatever is going to come after this padding. Okay, so let's just go ahead and format this, and we're going to go ahead and close the padding. But before we close the padding, what we need to take note of, whether we do have a comma or not. So we don't, so we need to add a comma here, and we need to go back right on top, and we just need to close it. So we need to handle whatever comes right at the bottom. Okay, at the bottom we're going to have another padding. So here our padding, we said padding text padding. So here we need to have a symmetrical padding. So we're going to use agencies.symmetric. We need to manipulate the horizontal side. So here we're just going to have horizontal, and for horizontal we need to give it a 12, like that. And right underneath we need to provide a child for our padding, and our child is going to be a column. So our column takes in children, and for our children, we're going to have the title. Let's see what we're going to have before we get into it. So this is what we're going to have. We're going to have our title first, and we're going to have delivery. So this is the time, like when the restaurant is open, and we're going to have our rating and our rating count. Okay, so let's go ahead and take care of that. What we're going to have inside of our column, we're going to have cross-axis alignment. So here we have to give it cross-axis alignment dot start. After that, we need to move on to our children. So our first child is going to be a ReusableText Widget, since we need to display our title. So here we need to just pass the title. After passing the title, we need to provide the style of that title. We need to map this to our appStyle. So we need to give it a size. So our size is going to be 12. And for our color, we're going to go ahead and use KDark. For the font weight, it has to be a little bit stronger than normal. So we're going to go with W500, like that. So let's save that. We do have our title. We do have our title here. So that's good. Next, let's go ahead and work on our next widget, which is going to be the time. Okay. So we need to add a comma. After adding a comma, we need to have a row widget. So instead of our row widget, we are taking in children. But before we take in children, we need to have main axis alignment, and we need to have main axis alignment dot space between. After that, we need to have our children. Here, we need to have heading, and we need to have the time itself. So we need to copy this, the ReusableText widget, and we need to paste it twice. Okay, and we paste it right at the bottom. So let's format our code. So here we're going to say it should be delivery time. T can be lowercase, so you can choose the way that you want to do it. And I'm going to decrease the size a little bit to 9. And for the color, we're not going to go with KDark for this one. We're going to go with KGray. After that, we're going to leave it as W500. So if we save, then we do have our delivery time, but here we need to specify the time itself. So we're going to pass in time. Okay, that's wrong. We need to pass in time here. Okay, like that. And we need to change the color from KDark. Let's see how it looks first. Okay, and that'll do. Let's make it 9. So let's go ahead and have our rating down below. Okay, so we're done with this row. So what we can do, we can just add a comma. After adding a comma, let's add some space over here, and let's just close it. After closing it, now we need to focus on our last widget, and our last widget is going to be a row as well. So this row is not going to have any extra properties. We're just going to have children. So for our children, we're going to have a rating bar indicator. So we've already installed a package which takes care of that. So if you visit our pubspec YAML, instead of our pubspec YAML, we do have a package which we are going to use. Let's go ahead and check whether the package is in here or not. Let's see. Okay, the Flutter rating bar. Okay, this is the package that we're going to use to take care of our rating stars and stuff. So let's go ahead. In here, we're going to have a rating bar. It's supposed to be rating bar indicator. It takes in a rating. So for rating, we're going to give it a rating of 5 for now. But before we do anything, let's make sure that we do import this indicator, but we cannot do that. So we have to import it manually. Okay, so we need to go to the top. Right at the top, we need to go ahead and import the package manually. So the name is Flutter underscore rating bar. Okay, that's going to be our package. Okay, so if you have all over, now we can see the properties of the rating bar indicator. Okay, so that means we've successfully imported. So we need an item builder. So for item builder, we take in context and index, same as we do for a list view. So here it's supposed to be colors that, let's go with amber. It's supposed to be amber, but let's go with K primary. Okay, so here we're just going to render the number of stars that we specified here. Okay, so if we have 5 here, that means we're going to be displaying 5 stars. Okay, yeah, okay, so we do have our stars, but we need to minimize the size a little bit and include some other properties. Item count, well, item count is going to be 5. After that, we need to go ahead and reduce the item size. So our item size is going to be 15. We need to make them a little bit smaller. So let's go with H. Okay, they need to be smaller to that extent. After that, the axis direction is the same. Okay, So we're going to maintain that axis direction. So probably this is all that we need to do for our rating star. The next thing that we need to do now is to put whatever comes after our rating star. Here we're going to have our ReusableText widget. Okay, so we're going to have the text that we're going to consume as well as our style. So let's deal with our style first. So it's going to be the same as this one. So we're just going to copy and we're going to paste it here. And for our text itself is going to be a rating. Yeah, okay, like that. So let's make this category and let's reduce the size to 9. So we need to add a little bit of space between the stars and the rating itself. So we're going to have a size box. Let's give it a width of 10 here, not a width of 5. We need to include screen utils, and let's get rid of the const so that we can get rid of the error. After that, let's go ahead and add some extra. So here, what we can do, we can put this like that, and we can say, we can put plus. Here we want to say reviews and ratings. Okay, supposed to be ratings like that. So here we can get rid of the braces. Okay, so it's going to be like that. So this plus can come before. Okay, so that's going to be our widget. So we are done with this widget. We're going to move on to the next. But before we proceed, what we can do, we need to reduce the size a little bit. Okay, so let's come here and change this to 2 and see what happens. Okay, that would work. Change this to 90. Okay, 90 will work as well. So that's going to be our widget. So we are done with that. The following one, the next one that we're going to work on is going to be our food. So if we go back to our bucket lists, we need to take this off our bucket list. Okay, so we need to work on this widget next, and then we can work on this too. We need to move on to our food widget. So the first thing that we need to do, we need to go to our food list, and we need to reduce this size from 210 to 184 like that. So if we save, our widget is going to be a little bit smaller. So our return widget is going to be a little bit similar to what we have here in our restaurant widget. Okay, so before we go ahead and copy everything that we need to copy in our restaurant widget, we need to create our food widget. So we need to create a new file, and we need to give it a name. So the name is supposed to be food_widget, and it's going to be a .dot file. After creating the file, we need to go ahead and create a stateless widget, and we need to call it food widget. Put a G here. Next, we need to go ahead and import material. After importing material, then we need to handle our return widget, not our return value. My bad. So let's go ahead and go to our restaurant widget. Okay. So we're going to just copy everything that we have here, and then we're going to make some changes. Go to our food widget, and then we're going to paste our widget. So first, we need to go ahead and declare the variables that we need to use right on top. Okay, so we're going to have 3 variables. So the first one is going to be a string. So final string, we're going to have an image. Let's close that, and let's copy it, paste it 3 times. Next, we're going to have a title, and right at the bottom, we're going to have the time. So this is the time with which the restaurant takes to prepare the food. And at the bottom, we're going to have a price. Okay, so our price is going to be a string as well. So let's just have price here. After that, we need to go ahead and have on tap. So it's supposed to be a final void, and it's supposed to be a function here, and we have to give it a name. So the name is supposed to be on tap, and let's close that. Okay, so we need to add these to our formal parameters like that. Okay, so we get that out of the way. The next thing, let's go ahead and import our constants, and here we need screen utils. So some of the stuff, we're going to get rid of them. Like the logo here, we don't need this widget, so we might as well just close it and then remove it completely. Okay, port this reusable text widget in the appStyle. Down at the bottom, we are not going to be requiring this rating. So if we go ahead and take a look at our finished product, so here we're going to have delivery time, title, price. So we're not going to require the rating. Okay, so we can get rid of the rating. After that, here we do have the first column. In the first column, we do have a title, but we need to wrap this title inside of a row as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to have a title and we're going to have our price on the other end. So inside of our row, let's paste another reusable text widget, and here we're going to have our price. So for our price, we need to include a dollar sign. We need to include a dollar sign. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it like that. So that's going to be our price. Here we do have this padding and we have the image. Okay, so we need to get rid of this stack because we no longer have the positioned widget. So we can remove the stack. So everything else here remains the same, and we need to reduce the size a little bit. So to 180. Let's save that. So let's just view our widget and see whether we do need to make some changes or not. We do have our price, we do have our image. Okay, let's hook it up and then we can judge from then, because when we are copying from some other widgets, it gets tricky. So let's go ahead to our food list. In our food list, we need to get rid of this return widget and we need to return a food widget. Let's just do it that way. So here we do have an image. Let's just format the code and we bring this down, and we bring the price down. So here we're going to access the food, and from the food we need to access image URL, and we need a title, we need time, and we need the price. Okay, so that's about it. So if we save, okay, so this is a double, our price is a double. Okay, so what we can do here, we can say dot is fixed. So we need to provide, we need to give it 2 decimal places. So here we're going to make it 2. So we're going to be passing our price with 2 decimal places. Okay, so that's right about it. So here let's just wait for our images to load so that we can view our page properly. And that's it, we're done with this page. So here we can reduce the size a little bit. So that's going to be our food widget. So here the row, this is why we need to just hook our widget and then we can edit things as we see them. So we did create this row, so we need to give it a main axis alignment dot space between. Okay, and then we save. So we need to have our price here. So for our price, we need to give it a different color as compared to our title. Okay, so here instead of K dark, we're going to go with K primary, like that, and we just need to change this from 500. Let's change it to 600 because the price has to be a little bit bold. So that's going to be our list. Go ahead and finish up with these 2 tiles that we didn't create in our last section. So first off, we're going to start working on our restaurant tile, then we can proceed to our food tile. So let's go back to our project. The first thing that we need to do, we need to go to our lib folder. Inside of our lib folder, we need to go to views. So inside of views, we're going to go to home. Inside of home, we have to visit widgets. In widgets, we need to create a file. So first we're going to deal with our restaurant tile. So we need to create the file. After creating the file, we need to create the widget. So the widget has to be a stateless widget and we have to give it a name. So the name is going to be restaurant tile. After that, we need to import material. After we import material, now we need to move on to our return widget. Okay. So in our return, the first thing that we need to do, we need to wrap this container inside of a gesture detector. So inside of our gesture detector, we're going to have an ontap function. So this ontap will redirect us to the restaurant page. Okay. So next, we're going to go ahead and wrap this container in another widget. We need a stack widget. So in order for us to do it with ease, we're just going to wrap it with a column. So a column takes in children. So here we're just going to change this to a stack. So now we do have our stack. We need to handle all the children that are going to come inside of our stack. So first, we're going to have a container. So inside of our container, we're going to have not main X alignment, but we're going to have margin. So our margin, we're going to have agencies dot only. So here we're going to manipulate the bottom part only. So we need to give it a bottom. To the bottom, we need to give it a margin of 8. After that, we need to go ahead and give it a height as well as a width. So for the height, we're going to give it a height of 70, and let's give it a width. So the width is going to be equal to the width from our constants. Right underneath, we need to go ahead and give it a decoration. So our decoration text box decoration. Inside of our box decoration, the first thing that we need to put is a color. So we're going to have our color. Our color is going to be off white. Okay. And then we're going to have a border radius. Okay, so here they're supposed to be inside of the box decoration, not outside. So here we're going to have border radius, and we have to map our border radius to border radius.circular, and our radius is going to be 9, like that. So we are done with our container. So after this container, we're going to have a child right outside of our box decoration. So our child is going to be another container. Inside of this container, we're going to have not margin, but we need padding. Okay. We need to add a little bit of padding. So we're going to have a padding agencies.all, and we need to give it a value. So our value is going to be 4. So let's give this container a child. So we're going to require a row inside here. So in our row, we're going to have cross-axis alignment. So here we need cross-axis alignment dot start, and we need to have children. Okay, so as for our children, the first child is going to be a clip rect. So our clip rect, as we've done before, it requires a border radius. We are going to give it a border radius of 12. So it's supposed to be border radius dot circular dot o. Let's go with dot o, and we give it radius.circular, and we give it a 12 here, like that. So let's close this so that we can have a little bit of space. Right underneath, we're going to require a child. So our child is going to be another stack widget. Okay, so a stack takes in children. Going back to the first stack, we need to add another property in our stack. We're going to have clip behavior. So for our clip behavior, we're going to use clip.hardEdge, like that. Okay. So let's go back to our second stack. So in our second stack, we're going to have a size box. So our size box is going to have a width as well as a height. So we're going to give it a width of 70, and we're going to give it a height of 70 as well, like that. So inside, we're going to have an image. Okay, so here we're going to have a network image. So we're going to use image.network, and we have to provide the source. So our source is going to be restaurant.image.url, not .image.url. In this instance, since our data is coming from our constants, it's supposed to be it's going to be URL here. Okay. So we need to create this instance. We need to receive the instance of this restaurant from the top. Okay. So what we are going to do, we're going to have a restaurant like that, and we need to add it to our formal parameters. Okay, let's go ahead, remove const, final dynamic, and we need to add it in the formal parameters. So here we don't have an error anymore. So we need to add fit to our image. So fit takes in box fit. So we're going to have a box fit.cover. That's all that we need to do for our image. So we're done with this size box. Okay, so that's going to be our first widget within this tag. So we want to handle the next one that comes after. So at the bottom, we're going to have a positioned widget. So before we deal with the child, we're going to handle with the position. So we need to give it a bottom. It has to be at the bottom. So we're going to give it a 0 here. And as for the child, we're going to give it a container. So our container is going to have a padding. Our padding, we have to use agencies dot only. We need to manipulate the left side and the bottom. Okay. So to the left, we need to give it a 6. So it's supposed to be 6.w. And to the bottom, we need to give it a 2, like that. So if it is bottom, we need to use H. After that, we need to go ahead and give this container a color. So we're going to give it a grain, and we need to make this gray a little bit transparent. So we're going to use with opacity. Okay, so we need to give it an opacity of 0.6, like that. Okay, so that's it for our color. Next, we need to give it a little bit of height. We're going to give it a height of 16. So 16.h. After the height, we need to go ahead and give it a width. So width is going to just occupy, is going to take up the width which is provided. Okay, so width is going to be assigned to width. Down at the bottom, we need to go ahead and have our child. So here, our child is going to be a rating bar indicator. Okay, so we need a rating bar indicator here. So first, we need our rating. Our rating is going to be 5. We need item count. Our item count is going to be 5 as well. Now let's see what's the issue here. Okay, we need to include some properties. We need item builder. So here we're going to take context and index. Okay, and we're going to return an icon. It's supposed to be icons dot star. Okay, okay, let's see. In here we do have an error. Okay, let's not use braces. Let's use an arrow function. And so here we're going to return an icon. So for icon, we're going to have icon.star. It's supposed to be icons here. And we need to give it a color. So our color is going to be K secondary, not K primary. Let's go with K secondary here. After that, we just need to add const, but we need to reduce the size of the stars that we are rendering here. So we need to go ahead and include item size. So for item size, we're going to give it a 15, like that. So let's go with 15.h and we save. So we are done with this positioned widget. Let's go ahead and close it. Right at the bottom, we need to add a comma. Let's add a comma here as well. And let's go ahead and close it. So this is it for this stack. So we need to go outside of this clip rect, add a comma, and we need to add a size box. And we need to give it a width since we're in a row. So we're going to give it a width of 10, like that. After giving it a width, we need to go below. And below, we're going to add a column. So our column is going to require main axis alignment. So we're going to have main axis alignment dot start. And we're going to have cross axis alignment as well. So both of them, they're going to be start. Okay. So we're going to have children. Our first child is going to be a reusable text widget. So let's just go ahead and write reusable text widget. So here we need the title of the restaurant. So inside of our reusable text widget, the first thing that we require a text. So a text is going to be a restaurant title. Okay, like that. Let's see, this widget is not imported. No, it is, but it requires a style. So we are required to add a style. So for style, we need to bring it down. After we bring it down, we need to map it to appStyle. So for the size, we're going to give it 11. We need to change the color to K dark. After changing the color, we need to give it a font weight. So for the font weight, we're going to go with W400, like that. So to just see the changes that we are making, we're just going to hook this widget to our restaurants here. Okay. We need the list first, the list that we're going to display here, and then we can hook this as our return widget. Okay. So let's go to the page. The page is supposed to be all nearby restaurants, right? So here we don't have a body, but for our body, we are going to, let's go ahead and try to hook it to a safe area. Instead of a safe area, we're going to have a background container. Okay, so our background container takes in a child and a color. So our child is going to be a list view. We'll deal with that a little bit later. But for the color, let's go with K of white. No, light white. Or colors dot white. Okay, let's go with dot white for starters, and then we can change it in a little bit. So we need to just check this color and put it on top of the child. Add a comma here. And for our child, we're just going to, let's pass a container for starters so that we can see what we have here. So here we need to just go ahead and remove the safe area like that. So that's going to be our widget. So here we do have this. That's something that we might need to handle. So we might need to use the same approach that we use for just give this a 0. Okay, so that it will be like that. Okay, so we need to handle this list first. So to do that, we can just go to the lists, some of the lists that we worked on. For example, this one, we can just copy. We can copy everything up until list view. Okay, and then we can just go back to our page, this page, and then we can paste the code here. So here we're supposed to have restaurants. So our return is supposed to be the tile. Okay. So here we're going to hook a restaurant tile like that. Okay, so what we can do, go back to our tile, and we want to set this as a required value like that. Let's save, go back. So here we need to pass in restaurant. So restaurant is supposed to be a restaurant here. Okay, so the reason why we do have this error is because here we do have food, but we don't have a restaurant. So it's supposed to be restaurants like that. So that's it. What we need to do here, we need to make this list vertical. Okay, so we can just get rid of the direction. So that's going to be our list. Okay, so one more thing that we can do is to add a little bit of padding. Okay, so instead of having padding.all, we can have symmetric. So here we need to manipulate the horizontal side, and we need to give it a 12. Supposed to be 12.w like that, and let's get rid of the cons. After that, okay, that's going to be our lists, but we still need to do something about the upper part. Okay, so what we can do, we can use this one from left, top, right, and back. So here from the left, we're going to give it a 12. From the top, we're going to give it a 12 as well. And from the right, we're going to give it a 12. And from the bottom, let's go ahead and give it a 12. So this was the same as .all. Okay, so this is the most logical thing to do at this particular moment. Okay, so that's going to be our list. Here we do have our list and our restaurants. So what we need to do, we just need to finish up. Okay, so here we can close this page and go back to our restaurant tile and finish up. Of this title, we're going to put another widget, which is a reusable text widget as well. So let's add a comment there. You close this and let's paste this. After pasting, let's go ahead and add delivery time. Okay, so the way that we're going to do it, we're just going to put everything in a string, and here we need to have delivery time. Let's add the semicolon there. Right here we're going to put time. Okay, like that. Okay, so that's going to be our time. So we need to change this from K dark to K gray. Lowercase k and then gray, like that. So now we need to go underneath this reusable text widget, and then we need to have a size box. It's supposed to be a size box. So our size box, we have to give it a width. For the width, we're going to check the width and we're going to multiply it by 0.7, like that. And then we need to give it a child. So our child is going to be a text widget. So we're going to put our restaurant address, not ID. So here we need to access the restaurant and we need to access codes. Okay, so these are coordinates. So if we go to our constants, instead of our constants, we visit our UI data and we visit a restaurant. So we have this map, okay, constants. So we need to get the address. Okay, so here after accessing codes, we need to go ahead and access address. So our text is going to require a style. So down at the bottom, we're going to have style. So our style is always going to be appStyle. So here we need to give it a size. So we're going to give it a 9. And for the color, we're going to go with K gray as well, like that. And let's give it a font weight. So for the font weight, we have to make it W400, like that. So let's save. So we do have an address for a restaurant. And down at the bottom, we need to just go ahead, since we're in another stack. Down at the bottom, we do have another stack widget, this stack. Okay, this stack. So that's the stack that we need to go ahead and work inside. But for this part, I think we are done. Let's see. So here, what we need to do, if there's an overflow, we need to be able to handle that. So we need to include the overflow property. And here we can just go with text overflow dot ellipsis. Something like that. Okay. So that's all that we need to do. Right at the bottom, let's see. Everything is concentrated right at the top. Okay, let's go ahead and visit this application here. And we visit restaurants. Let's just check what our... Okay, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. So we need these two, but probably we might need to reduce the size of our widget a little bit. Alternatively, in this column, what we can do, let's see, main axis alignment dot start. Cross axis alignment. Okay, let's go with start, but main, let's go with space evenly. Okay, we're going to go with space evenly so that we can have the space in between and everything won't be concentrated right on the top. Okay, so that's all that we need to do for that. But before we proceed, there's something that I need to do. We go to our reusable text widget. Here we're taking in texts. Okay, we should go to appStyle. Inside of appStyle, for our size, we need to add .sp like that. Okay, so our sizes are going to be a little bit bigger. So let's go back and see whether we do have, no, we don't have an overflow issue, but it should add sp here. Okay, so let's go back to our restaurants and finish up on the stack. Okay, let's close this style, and now we need to go down below to our, right after this container, we're going to have another positioned widget. Not another, we're going to have a positioned widget. That's the first for the stack. So our positioned is going to take a child. So our child is going to be a container. But we need to place this on the right side. So on the right, we're going to give it a 5. And to the top, we're going to give it a 6. Like that. So let's handle what comes inside of our container. So our container, we have to give it a width. So for width, we need to give it a 60. And for height, we need to give it 1920. So 19 is the one that I'm going to go with. Let's give it a decoration. So for decoration, we're going to require box decoration. And inside our box decoration, we're going to get a color. So for the color, here we need to access our restaurant, and this property not is open, but we don't have this property is open, but we do have is available. Okay, so if we go back and visit our constants, so if we check our single restaurant, okay, the variable might not be in here. Okay, so we have is available here. So that's the one that we're going to be using. Is available, then we're going to display primary. Otherwise, we have to have two scenarios. Okay, if this is equals to true, well, let's put it this way, because some of our items don't have that value. So we're going to just is equals to true. And restaurant is available is not equal to So to now, okay, that's the second scenario. We're going to give it a color. So okay, so let's go to this one. Let's just use this one because some of our restaurants don't have this value, but you can go ahead and just set it on all restaurants. But when we are connecting to our REST API, we're just going to revisit and change this. Okay, so here we can go with gray light. Okay, so here we are going to give it a border radius, BR. So border radius, we're going to have a border radius dot circular. Let's give it a 10 instead of a 5. Okay, so inside we need to have a child widget. Our child widget is going to be a reusable text. So if it's like that, we need to just say open, else it's going to be closed. So this will show whether the restaurant is open or closed. So here we need to have our appStyle. So for appStyle, we're going to have a 12. For the color, we're going to go with dark. And for the font weight, let's go with bold. I like that. Okay, so we need to push this to the center. We can wrap it inside of a center widget. Okay, so let's just go ahead and close these. We don't need them. Okay, and let's just wrap this inside of a center. Okay, like that. So bold might be too much. Let's go with W600 or W500. Either way. 600 will do. Okay, light white. Okay, that would do. So this will just symbolizes that our restaurant is open. Okay, so let's visit our restaurant. We do have this. No, we're not going to put it because it's irrelevant. So we just need this. So we just, here, what's left is to set the logic. So here it's supposed to be K secondary light, not K gray. Okay, so if it is closed, it's going to be like this. If it's open, it's going to be like this. Okay, so for our colors here, we said K light. So it's supposed to be secondary light. If it is closed, so we need to just copy the same logic and we're going to put it here. Let's see what seems to be the issue. Okay, else is going to be closed. It's supposed to be a string here, and let's just say closed, and let's format the code. So it's going to be like that. So we are done with this part. Next, we're going to be focusing on our food. Okay, so we can press back. Next, we're going to handle our FoodTile.